is a book in this cabin, a simple thing, bound in cracked leather, its pages yellowed with age, a guest book. Every traveller who stays here is asked to sign their name upon arrival. A tradition, nothing more. Most names are written in neat, careful script. Some hurried, some shaky, as though the writer's hands were trembling when they held the pen. But sometimes, just sometimes, a guest opens the book and they find their name already written inside. The ink long since dried, but the letters unmistakably their own. One traveller, much like yourself, arrived on a stormy night. They had been on the road for far too long, their bones aching from the cold, their breath visible in the air as they stepped inside. They set their bags down, eager for warmth, and were greeted by the sight of that old book just there, sitting on the wooden table. Its pages fluttering gently as though an unseen hand had just turned them. Curious, they reached for it, much like you are right now, running their fingers over the embossed lettering on the cover. It felt warm, as though someone had just touched it moments before. They opened it, their eyes scanning the list of names. Some had dates beside them, others did not. Some names had been crossed out so violently that the ink had torn the paper. They laughed, amused by the old-fashioned ritual. A guest book, how quaint, they murmured, running a finger down the columns of the names. And then, suddenly, their laughter stopped. There, in faded script, was their own name. The date, exactly 1 year prior. Their smile faltered. A trick, surely. A coincidence, nothing more. Perhaps someone else with the same name had once stayed here. But as they traced the letters with their fingertips, a cold unease settled in their chest. Because the handwriting, the shape of the letters, the way the T curled at the end of their name, it was theirs. They flipped through the pages, frantic now, searching for something, anything that could explain it. But there was nothing. Just that single entry, their names staring back at them from the past. Their hands had begun to tremble. They turned to the innkeeper, their voice unsteady. This must be a mistake. The innkeeper, a shadowy figure by the fire, simply tilted their head. A mistake, they echoed, their voice soft, almost amused. The traveller swallowed hard, forcing out a nervous chuckle. Yes, I've never been here before. The innkeeper did not reply. Instead, they simply nodded toward the book. Look again. The traveller hesitated, but their fingers moved of their own accord, flipping back to the page. And that was when they saw it. The ink. It was still wet. The letters, once faded, now dark and fresh, as though the name had just been written. The traveller jerked back from the book, their chair scraping loudly against the wooden floor. Their breath came in shallow gasps. The walls of the cabin seemed closer now, the far dimmer the shadows, deeper. The innkeeper simply watched, and then they smiled. The traveller wanted to leave, to run, but something kept them rooted to the spot. Their gaze fixed on the book as the pages flipped themselves forward, one after another, until it stopped. Until it landed on a blank page. And then the pen, lying beside it, lifted off the table. They could not breathe, could not move. Their pulse pounded in their ears as, before their very eyes, the pen began to write, letter by letter, their name again. The date? 1 year from today. The innkeeper let out a soft chuckle, the sound barely more than a breath. Welcome back, they said. The traveller's pulse thundered, their eyes darted to the door, their legs finally breaking free of whatever unseen force had held them in place. They ran from the book, from the fire, from the smiling innkeeper who never moved from their spot. And then the night swallowed them whole. And in the cabin, the ink on the page slowly dried. Shall I read you the next entry?